One night at a college in the United Kingdom. Laughter, lights, and music filled the air, until suddenly, everything stopped. Everyone thought it was just a power cut, but no one knew that something had awakened in that room. Wet footprints began to appear, one by one, leading straight toward someone at the party. What was meant to be a night of fun was about to become a nightmare no one would ever forget. Don't blink, because every sound, every shadow, might not belong to the living anymore. The party at the college in the United Kingdom began with laughter and loud music. Colorful lights reflected off the old classroom walls that had been transformed into a party hall. The air was thick with the scent of perfume and mixed drinks. People danced wildly under the flashing lights. Alex, an international student from Thailand, stood by the corner with a drink in his hand. He smiled, watching his friends laugh and cheer. The music was pounding through the floor, making his heart race with excitement. For a moment, everything felt perfect, youth, freedom, and friendship blending into one night. But then, the lights flickered. Just once, then again. The music stuttered and stopped. The crowd fell silent, confusion spreading like a wave. Someone laughed nervously, thinking it was part of a joke. But the air had changed, heavier, colder. Alex felt a strange chill run down his spine. He turned toward the far end of the room. There, near the old door leading to the storage room, something moved. It was faint, like a shadow shifting against the wall. Alex blinked, thinking his eyes were playing tricks on him. But when the lights flickered again, he saw it clearly, a figure standing still, half hidden by darkness. The figure did not move, did not speak. Its presence was wrong, too still, too silent, as if the air itself refused to touch it. A faint tapping sound echoed, slow and deliberate, like someone walking barefoot on a wet floor. Everyone was watching now, breaths held, waiting. Then, the door creaked open by itself. A gust of cold air swept through the room, making the decorations sway. The lights dimmed further, and someone screamed, a short, sharp sound that broke the silence. Alex's heartbeat pounded in his ears. He wanted to step back, to look away, but his body refused to move. The figure at the doorway tilted its head slowly, unnaturally. Something glinted in the dark, eyes, or maybe something worse. The music suddenly came back on, louder than before. The lights flashed violently, blinding everyone for a moment. When they cleared, the doorway was empty. But the floor beneath was wet, as if someone had just walked through water. Alex glanced down and froze. His shoes were soaked, and a small trail of footprints led straight toward him. Story continues. Alex froze, his breath catching in his throat. The trail of wet footprints glistened faintly in the flickering light, small, narrow, and perfectly shaped, leading straight toward where he stood. He could feel the chill seeping into his shoes, soaking through his socks, crawling up his legs like something alive. The crowd had fallen silent again. No one spoke. The music had died once more, replaced by a low hum of the speakers struggling to come back to life. The smell of the air had changed. What had once been perfume and sweat was now cold, damp, and faintly metallic. It reminded Alex of rain-soaked concrete and iron. He looked around. His friends were staring too, faces pale under the party lights. One of them, Lily, whispered something he could not catch. Another student laughed nervously again, trying to brush it off as some elaborate prank. But Alex knew, this was no prank. He bent slightly, his eyes following the wet footprints on the floor. They stopped just a few inches from where he stood. There were no more after that. As if whoever had left them had simply vanished into thin air. A faint whisper brushed past his ear. Soft, cold. It wasn't words, just a sound, like breath passing through hollow space. He spun around, but no one was there. Only the flashing lights, the trembling shadows, and his own quickened breathing. Lily stepped closer. Alex, are you okay? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. He nodded slowly, not trusting his voice. The others began murmuring among themselves, the sound of fear disguised as laughter. Then, one of the boys, Mark, walked toward the door at the end of the room. Probably someone from the drama club, he said with a smirk. They love this creepy stuff. He reached for the doorknob. The metal was old and rusted, part of the building that hadn't been used in years. As his hand touched it, a sharp cracking sound echoed through the room, like wood splitting under pressure. Mark jerked his hand away. His skin was pale, and there was a faint red mark across his palm, as if something had burned him. Damn, it's hot, he shouted, shaking his hand. But Alex had seen it. A thin puff of white mist had escaped from the crack of the door, curling upward like smoke. The mist spread across the floor, cold and heavy. The lights dimmed again, one by one, until only the glow from the DJ table remained. And in that half-darkness, something began to move inside the mist. It slithered, curled, and began to rise, shaping itself into something almost human, but not quite. The figure was taller than any of them, thin, its movements unnaturally slow. Its face was blurred, like a reflection on disturbed water. When it moved forward, the mist followed, clinging to its form. Someone screamed. Then the lights went out completely. In the pitch-black darkness, chaos erupted. People ran, stumbled, shouted, the sound of panic filling the hall. Someone fell, glasses shattered, a table overturned. Alex felt a hand grab his arm, Lily's voice trembling beside him, "We need to get out." He nodded, trying to find his way toward the exit, guided only by the faint emergency lights that flickered near the hallway. The sound behind them, wet, dragging footsteps, echoed through the dark. Every step made the air colder, heavier. Alex could feel the breath of something close behind him. They reached the door, pushing it open with force. The hallway outside was empty, long and dimly lit by the yellow bulbs overhead. They ran, their footsteps echoing down the corridor. But halfway through, the lights began to flicker again. And from the far end of the hall, a shape appeared. It stood still at first, motionless. Then, it began to walk toward them. Slowly, deliberately, each step making that same wet, dragging sound. Lily gasped. "What is that?" Alex didn't answer. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward a nearby door, the library. They slipped inside, slamming the door shut behind them. The room smelled of old paper and dust. The moonlight through the high windows cast long shadows across the rows of books. For a moment, it was silent. Then, a faint thump echoed from outside. Another, and another. The sound of footsteps stopping just beyond the door. Alex pressed his ear against the wood. He could hear breathing, slow, raspy, and uneven. Then, suddenly, it stopped. The silence that followed was worse than any noise. They waited. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. Finally, Lily whispered, "Maybe it's gone." Alex nodded, though he didn't believe it. They turned toward the back of the library, looking for another way out. Between the tall shelves, the air felt strangely heavy. The shadows seemed deeper here. And as Alex moved forward, he noticed something strange. The books on the shelves were damp. Water was dripping from their edges, forming small puddles on the floor. He reached out to touch one. It was ice cold. When he pulled his hand back, his fingertips were wet, but not with water. The liquid was darker, thicker. He looked closer, his heart pounding. It was red. Lily gasped softly behind him. The puddles were spreading, crawling across the floor toward their feet. And then, from between the shelves, two pale hands appeared, gripping the edges of the bookcase. The figure's face emerged slowly, half covered in shadow, eyes hollow and glistening with an inhuman sheen. It smiled, a faint, distorted curve of its lips. Alex stumbled back, pulling Lily with him. The creature moved forward, dragging itself across the floor, leaving a trail of that dark, wet substance behind. Its voice, when it spoke, was faint and broken, like a whisper from underwater. "Why are you here?" The sound of those words seemed to twist the air. The lights in the library flickered, and several books fell from the shelves, their pages fluttering wildly. Alex backed away, his body trembling. He had no answer, only fear. Then, a sudden loud bang echoed through the room. The main door had burst open. Mark and two others stood there, their faces pale with terror. "Come on," Mark shouted. "We found a way out." Alex turned, dragging Lily toward them. But before they could reach the door, the creature let out a sound, not a scream, but a deep, echoing wail that shook the walls. The lights shattered, glass rained down, and in that brief moment of darkness, something cold brushed against Alex's neck. He ran. All of them did. Through the hallways, down the stairs, out into the open courtyard. The night air hit them like a slap, fresh, real, alive. They didn't stop until they were far from the building, standing under the yellow streetlights. Their breaths came fast, white in the cold night air. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Lily whispered, "What was that thing?" No one answered. Behind them, the old building stood silent, its windows dark. But as Alex looked up one last time, he saw something in the top window, a pale face watching. Motionless. And even from a distance, he could see it was smiling. His heart thudded once more. The wind picked up, carrying faint echoes of laughter, distant, soft, and wrong. The kind of sound that didn't belong to the living. The party that night was never mentioned again. By morning, the college sealed off the old building, claiming it was unsafe. But Alex knew what he had seen. And sometimes, when the night was quiet, he swore he could still hear the sound of wet footsteps behind him, slow, steady, and getting closer. Story continues. Weeks passed after that night, but the memories refused to fade. Classes resumed, laughter returned to the hallways, and new parties were planned, but none near the old building again. It stood at the far end of the campus, silent and locked, with a faded "Do Not Enter" sign nailed across the entrance. Students whispered about what had happened, but no one ever spoke the truth aloud. Alex tried to move on. He buried himself in studies, spent time with friends, and told himself it was all in his imagination. But every time he walked past the old courtyard, he felt it, that chill in the air, that faint metallic smell, that sense of being watched. At night, he sometimes dreamed of the party, the flickering lights, the shadow by the door, and the trail of wet footprints leading to his shoes. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the gray buildings, Lily found Alex sitting alone near the fountain. She sat beside him quietly, watching the ripples in the water. Neither spoke for a while. Finally, she said softly, "Do you think it was real?" Alex looked up, his eyes tired but calm. "I don't know," he said. "Maybe it was something that place remembered. Something we woke up by mistake." Lily nodded slowly, her face pale in the fading light. Then she whispered, "But it knew your name, Alex." His breath caught. He hadn't told anyone, no one but her, that on the night of the party, just before he ran, he had heard it. A voice, faint and broken, calling softly from the dark, "Alex, stay." That night, he couldn't sleep. He turned in bed, the sound of rain tapping against the window. The dorm was quiet, only the faint hum of the radiator filled the air. He closed his eyes, trying to calm his mind. But then, from somewhere nearby, he heard it.